The wind on this planet had an attitude problem. Leaf had decided this about 3 minutes after stepping out of his crash-landed freighter and being slapped across the face with red dust that tasted like burned batteries and old regret. The sky above churned a sort of brownish pink, as if someone had spilled coffee into the upper atmosphere and never cleaned it up. His ship, a reliable rust bucket named the 9%, after the discount he'd been conned into thinking was a deal, was currently smoking from at least 3 vents that had no right to be smoking. "Beautiful," Leaf muttered, kicking the hull, which responded with a metallic groan and a puff of steam. "You get one rough landing and suddenly you're a drama queen." He scanned the horizon, visor adjusting automatically to the dust. According to his nav logs, there was no settlement within 100 clicks. Just rocks, more rocks, the occasional twitching thorn tree, and something his scanners insisted was ambient organic instability, which usually translated to, "Probably won't kill you instantly, but don't lick it." His comm crackled. Static, then a warble of something odd. Not a distress signal. Those had structure. This was strange, repeating, faint, curious, and absolutely the kind of thing he should ignore if he wanted to stay alive. So of course he followed it. Climbing a ridge with the help of an underpowered rover and a lot of swearing, Leaf finally reached a plateau where the signal strength peaked. There, nestled in a shallow hollow between 2 slanted slabs of rock, was someone or something. She looked at first glance like a human woman who had decided space fashion was overrated and went for the windswept mythical elf aesthetic. Long black hair scattered like ribbons in the wind, pale skin that almost shimmered where light touched it, and ears elegant and drawn long, like delicate antennae sculpted in ivory. She sat perfectly still, arms wrapped around her knees, head bowed, and she was crying, quietly. Leaf shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to proceed. He was a fixer of things, ships, tools, occasionally vending machines that dispensed soup with the temperature of a neutron star, but crying women with otherworldly features were not covered in any of his manuals. Still, he stepped forward, not stealthily. He didn't want to spook her, but slowly, awkwardly. "Hey," he said, then immediately regretted it. Too casual, too loud. Hi, are you okay?" "Wait, no, obviously not. You're crying." "Dumb question. I mean, not that crying's bad. I do it too. Usually when I read my paycheck." She didn't look up, didn't move. Panic kicked him gently in the ribs. He crouched beside her, trying not to stare, but also trying to confirm she wasn't secretly a camouflaged apex predator. He hesitated, then speaking gently now said, "You're a beautiful girl." The words hung there. Useless maybe, silly, true. And then she laughed. It started as a hiccup, then a chuckle, then full-bodied, rolling laughter that echoed off the stones like a music long lost. Leaf blinked. "Okay, so either I just said something deeply offensive in your language," he said, "or you really needed that." She wiped her eyes, still laughing softly, then finally looked at him. Her gaze was sharp and luminous, a color he didn't have a name for, somewhere between stormlight and the taste of ozone. "I haven't heard a human speak like that in a long time," she said. Her voice was low, accented, melodic in a way that made his ears feel underdressed. "I'm not sure that's a compliment," Leaf replied. "You laugh like I just proposed marriage and fell over doing it." She tilted her head. "Is that how humans propose marriage?" "It is now," he said, "but only if you're both desperate and have access to a malfunctioning gravity belt." She blinked slowly. "I am not laughing at you," she said. "It's just your presence. It surprised me." "Well, I'm full of surprises." "Like this," he said, pulling a crumpled ration bar from his jacket. "Genuine synthetic beef flavored, probably. May also contain hints of regret and motor oil." She took it delicately, studied it like a relic, then actually took a bite. Chewed, blinked again. "This tastes like sorrow." "Exactly," he said. "Pairs well with existential dread and lukewarm coffee." They sat in silence for a moment, the wind hissing over the rocks like an annoyed librarian. "What's your name?" he asked. She paused as if weighing something ancient. My name is not used anymore. That's a bit dramatic. I was exiled. Ah, intergalactic politics. Always a joy. I was told I no longer had the right to speak my name. Leaf squinted. Yeah, see, that's dumb. You need a name. Even rogue coffee machines have names. She smiled faintly. You may call me what you like. He considered. How about Echo? She looked thoughtful. Echo, a name that returns. That's the idea. Plus you kind of echoed my weird sense of humor, so it fits. Echo then, she said softly. He stood and offered a hand. Come on, Echo. Let's get out of the wind before it files a complaint. My ship's wrecked, the snacks are awful, but I make decent company and I only scream a little when startled. She took his hand. Hers was cool, slender, strong. You are very strange, human. Thank you. I work hard at it. As they walked together toward the wrecked freighter and the uncertain horizon beyond, the wind shifted again. Softer now, almost amused. The interior of the 9% smelled like burnt circuitry and defiant optimism. Echo stepped inside and paused, her eyes scanning the exposed wiring, half-functional systems, and a motivational poster peeling off the wall that read, "Success is just failure in reverse." Is this a shelter? She asked, eyebrows lifting. It's a ship, Leaf said proudly, thumping a nearby panel. The panel promptly fell off and clanged against the floor. A majestic, somewhat grumpy ship. She prefers the term distressed but dignified. Echo stepped over a coiled length of cable that might have once connected to something important. I've seen escape pods with more structural confidence. Harsh but fair, Leaf muttered, picking up the panel. I'll have you know this baby's made the Klegnar run in under 2 cycles. What's the Klegnar run? Mostly asteroids, one suspicious space moose, and an immigration checkpoint that thinks sarcasm is a crime. She tilted her head. Do you always speak this way? Only when I'm nervous, or bored, or alive. He led her into the main compartment, a cramped cockpit lounge hybrid where the seats were mismatched, the viewport smudged with something that refused to be identified, and a tiny brewing unit hissed suspiciously in the corner. This is where the magic happens, he said, flipping a switch that caused every overhead light to blink erratically. Okay, maybe more haunted carnival than magic, but it's got charm. You hungry? Echo nodded once, like she wasn't entirely sure what hunger should feel like, but was willing to trust the human with the chaotic spaceship. Leaf dug into a storage locker and produced 2 meal pouches. Today's fine selection, rehydrated root stew and mystery cube. I assume the mystery is whether it's still food. She watched him carefully as he heated them over the ship's auxiliary heat vent, her eyes glimmering with interest. Why do you speak so lightly even now? I could go for brooding and mysterious, but it doesn't pair well with my hairline, he said. Besides, humor helps, like a spacesuit for the soul. She didn't laugh this time, but her mouth curved at the edges, as if the idea amused her in ways she didn't yet understand. As they ate, he with casual gusto, she with the careful grace of someone who hadn't tasted anything in weeks. Leaf watched her. So, Echo, what exactly were you doing out there? Just sightseeing the galaxy's worst vacation spot? Her spoon paused. I was left here. Left as in dropped off gently with a thank you note? Or left as in political exile kind of left? She looked at him then, and her eyes had a depth that didn't belong in such a small space. I was royalty, once, on Elhara. Royalty? Leaf blinked. Like, bow before you royalty? Like orchestrate policy through thought, melds royalty. Wow, you're way outside my dating pool. She blinked. Is this a courtship? Leaf choked on a piece of root. No, I mean, unless... Wait, are you asking or warning me? I'm uncertain. That makes 2 of us. She returned to her meal. I was not exiled for failure. I was exiled for sentiment. Leaf leaned back against the bulkhead. Let me guess. Your people are the cold, emotionless type. Think compassion is an outdated firmware? Yes. And you decided to not be that. I loved. And they feared what that would mean. Cheese. Leaf shook his head. You finally download the Feelings expansion pack and get banished for it. Rough. They said I compromised our evolution. Well, from where I'm sitting, you look like the upgrade, not the bug. She stared at him for a moment too long, then said softly, "Thank you." Leif rubbed the back of his neck. "Hey, it's no big—" A sudden clatter from the aft compartment interrupted him. Echo straightened, alert. "Relax," Leif said, standing. "Probably just Gerald." "Gerald? My assistant." "You have an assistant?" A small maintenance drone rolled into view. It looked like a spherical toaster with too many legs and a bandolier of spare screws slung dramatically across its middle. "Gerald, meet Echo." "Echo, Gerald." Gerald's vocabulary is 60% curse words and 40% passive-aggressive beeping. The drone beeped twice, mournfully. "See? He likes you." Echo raised an eyebrow. "Is he sentient?" "Only when convenient," Leif said, like a cat with a welding torch. The rest of the evening passed in strange peace. Echo asked questions about Earth, about music, about why humans invented something called pineapple pizza. Leif answered all of them with the confidence of someone who knew only 60% of the truth and filled in the rest with comedic guesswork. When she finally asked, "Why do you keep helping me?" he shrugged. "Because you laughed," he said, "and not many people do anymore." She looked away then, toward the viewport where the twin moons hung low over the horizon like two curious eyes. "I haven't laughed since I left Elhara," she said. "Well, let's change that," Leif said. "Starting tomorrow, we'll fix the ship, steal some power cells from the local wildlife, don't ask, and then maybe see if we can find you a name badge that says Queen of Feelings." She looked at him. "You are strange, Leif." "And yet here you are," he said, raising his ration pouch. "To strange company." She tapped her spoon against his with a soft clink. To strange company. They spent the next morning arguing with a rock. To be fair, the rock had a control panel embedded in its face and a suspicious blinking light, and Leif was reasonably sure it was a disguised entrance to something. Possibly an old mining outpost. Possibly a bunker. Possibly a very smug geological prank. "I'm telling you," he said, tapping the panel again, "this is a door. It's got a serial number and a corrosion-resistant latch. Rocks don't usually have those." Echo stood beside him with her arms folded. "Or it's a rock that once swallowed a door. This planet's geological history is opinionated." Leif turned to Gerald. "Scan it again." The maintenance drone beeped once, then projected a low-resolution hologram of the rock's internal composition. Inside, hollowness, machinery, and a vending machine. "See? That's at least one caffeinated beverage away from a solid argument." Echo raised one brow. "And how do you plan to open it?" Leif grinned. "The ancient and sacred rite of button mashing." He smacked the panel repeatedly. After several buzzes, one disgruntled spark, and what might have been an insult in binary, the panel lit up green. A low rumble vibrated the ground, and the rock split along a seam to reveal a narrow tunnel with flickering lights. "I am both impressed and concerned," Echo said. "That's the effect I go for," Leif replied, stepping inside. "Ladies first, unless it's booby-trapped, in which case Gerald volunteers." The tunnel descended steeply, walls lined with rusted conduit and control nodes that hummed with dormant power. The air smelled like ozone, an ancient disappointment. At the bottom, they entered a circular chamber where a defunct energy core glowed faintly at the center, encased in what Leif identified, after a few seconds of hopeful blinking, as a Class G auxiliary fusion unit. "This," he said reverently, "is exactly what I need to get the 9% humming again." Echo moved closer, inspecting the fusion unit. "It's operational but unstable. Extraction may trigger a feedback loop. So, we touch it very gently, like waking a sleep-deprived warlord." Gerald beeped twice and extended a manipulator arm. "Not you, buddy," Leif said. "You're still grounded after the toaster incident." He crouched, removed a toolkit from his belt, and began carefully disengaging the power clamps. Echo knelt beside him, silent, watching his hands move with surprising precision. "You're very good at this," she said quietly. "Spaceship repair? Emotional deflection? Poor life choices? You'll have to be more specific." She smiled faintly. "Creating peace where there should be none." Leif didn't look up. "You get a lot of practice when you're the youngest of 8 on a cargo freighter run by your mom." A loud click interrupted them. The power clamp detached. "Okay," Leaf said. "Moment of truth." He lifted the core. Nothing exploded. Yet. But then the walls hissed, and a deep metallic voice echoed through the chamber. "Unauthorized removal detected. Defense sequence initiated." "Of course," Leaf muttered. "Why wouldn't there be a defense sequence?" Panels slid open in the walls, revealing 4 spindly robots with crab-like legs and glowing red eyes. Echo rose to her full height. "Combat units. Obsolete, but still dangerous." "Any chance we could negotiate?" Leif asked. One robot fired a warning shot that melted a chunk of ceiling. "I'll take that as a no." Leif tossed the power core to Gerald. "Run, buddy. Go full squirrel mode." The drone beeped indignantly and scuttled toward the tunnel, legs whirring. Echo moved with eerie grace, her body a blur. She struck one robot in the center mass, shorting its core with a burst of energy from her palm. "You have powers?" Leif said, ducking behind a console. "I am Elharian," she replied, sending another robot crashing into the wall with a telekinetic push. "We evolved past the need for blunt instruments." "Sounds convenient. I evolved past the need for pants with real pockets." He ducked a laser blast, grabbed a discarded wrench, and flung it like a boomerang. It hit one robot squarely in the processor. The machine staggered, sparked, then fell over. "3 down," he shouted. "2," Echo corrected. "That one's rebooting." "Aw, come on, give me the win." Together, they disabled the last robot. Smoke drifted lazily through the chamber. Gerald beeped from the tunnel, still holding the power core like it was a priceless egg. They climbed back to the surface, panting, singed, victorious. As they emerged into daylight, Leaf flopped onto a nearby boulder. "That went marginally better than usual." Echo sat beside him. "You're not what I expected." "Is that a good thing?" "I don't know yet." They sat in silence. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the landscape. Leaf reached over and gently tapped her shoulder. "Hey, Echo?" "Yes?" "You ever think the universe has a weird sense of humor?" "All the time." "Good, because I think it just made us a team." She looked at him, something soft flickering in her gaze. "We'll need a name." "For the team?" "For us." Leif grinned. "How about the beautiful disaster and the exiled queen?" She laughed, a real, bubbling laugh that made the wind seem to pause. "I'll allow it," she said. By midday, the 9% was alive again, which was saying something, considering it had previously wheezed like a dying accordion every time someone opened a hatch. The newly installed fusion core pulsed with the smug glow of a recently resurrected antique. Lights flickered in defiance of entropy, systems rebooted one by one, and the ship's computer announced in a sleepy, glitch-ridden voice, "Welcome back, regrettable user." Leaf gave the dashboard an affectionate pat. "We've missed you too, EVIE. Echo raised an eyebrow. "The ship speaks?" "She prefers it when you whisper sweet maintenance logs into her audio ports. Gets jealous if I look at other starships too long." The ship's voice crackled, then added, "He cheats on me with escape pods." "That happened once," Leaf muttered. Echo tilted her head. "Your ship has personality flaws." She learned from the best. With power restored, they ran diagnostics, plotted out their fuel reserves, which were at a "we hope space dust is edible" level, and patched into local nav beacons. That's when EVIE picked up something curious. "There's a signal," she said, "emanating from within the Veldran ruins, frequency coded in Elharian high dialect." Echo stood abruptly. "That's impossible. The ruins were sealed after the Exodus." "Maybe someone left the door open," Leaf offered. "Do you guys do that thing where you say something's sealed, but really just hang a "do not enter" sign and hope no one checks?" She shook her head, but there was unease in her posture. "If the signal is real, it means someone survived. Or returned." "Well, that sounds only moderately horrifying," Leif said. "Should we check it out?" "It may be a trap." "Great, I'll bring snacks." The Veldran ruins weren't far. Half a day's ride on the terrain crawler, Leif kept bolted to the underside of the ship, like a particularly grumpy sidecar. The crawler groaned its way across the rocky plains, while Leaf hummed a tune he claimed was from an Earth musical titled Guys in Gravity. Echo, for her part, sat quietly, eyes on the horizon, lost in thought. "You okay?" he asked, steering them around a crater that smelled vaguely of cinnamon and regret. "I'm not sure I want to find what's waiting there," she said. "Could be someone who misses you. Could be a vending machine playing old messages. Could be an Elharian-themed gift shop. We won't know until we look." She nodded slowly. "I am afraid that what I lost will still be alive and unchanged." "Sometimes things surprise you," he said. "Look at Gerald. He was just a toaster with legs, and now he's a toaster with ambition." The crawler crested a ridge, and the ruins came into view. Twisted towers of silver-veined stone, crumbled statues half sunk in the earth, and archways that hummed faintly with residual psionic energy. They left the crawler behind and stepped carefully into the remains of what was once a cultural center, or, as Leif put it, the Elharian version of a really intense library. The signal grew stronger. They followed it through a winding corridor until they found a terminal still active, its interface flickering with Elharian glyphs. Echo reached out and placed her hand on the console. The glyphs pulsed, then stabilized. A voice played. It was her mother. Echo staggered slightly. Leif caught her elbow, steadying her. The message was a recorded broadcast. Her mother's voice was formal, poised, but there was a strain underneath. "To those who remain," it said, "you must know why she was cast out." She felt for the lesser beings. She chose empathy over logic, affection over policy. "We feared what she might become, not because it was wrong, but because it was beyond us." The message ended. Silence returned, heavier than before. "I wasn't exiled," Echo whispered. "I was exiled by fear. But they knew. They all knew." Leaf sat on a dusty console and kicked his feet a little. "Sounds like your mom had doubts. People change. Civilizations, maybe not so much. But individuals can surprise you. I should hate them. But you don't." She sat beside him, her expression distant. "It would be easier if I did." "Well, I think you're doing just fine. Emotional complexity looks good on you." She laughed softly. "You're impossible." "Yeah, but I'm charming, and I brought snacks." He held out a crumpled ration bar. "Try not to cry until after you taste this. Tears make it saltier." They rested there for a while. Echo didn't speak, but her fingers brushed the terminal again, tracing the glyphs as if searching for something else. When she finally stood, it was with new weight behind her steps. "There's a ship buried beneath the archives," she said. "Elharian. Experimental. I sensed it when the system linked with me." "You sensed it?" "Our technology was neural. I can still connect." Leaf's eyebrows went up. "You've been walking around with a spaceship in your psychic pocket this whole time?" She smiled. "I wasn't sure it still functioned." "Well, let's go dig it up. Worst case, it tries to eat us, and we go out in a blaze of science fiction glory." They returned to the 9% and brought up a series of excavation tools, one of which looked suspiciously like a dental drill for giants, and began clearing the debris. Hours passed. Gerald nearly electrocuted himself twice. Leif sang more of Guys in Gravity, a show Echo suspected he may have invented. When the ship finally emerged, it was sleek, silver-black, and unnaturally still. Echo laid her hand against the hull, and the vessel thrummed faintly. "She recognizes me." "Does she have a name?" Echo hesitated. "Ava. It means remembrance. Poetic. She was designed to survive when others could not. So she's like you." Echo looked at him. She's stronger." "Are we still talking about the ship?" Echo didn't answer. Instead, she turned to him with an odd look, half gratitude, half warning. "Leif, if I take Ava, I could leave, reach the stars, find out what became of my people." Leif swallowed. "Right, of course, that's what you should do. You're not angry?" Number A, little sad maybe, but mostly proud. "I got to meet someone extraordinary and help her fix a toaster." She smiled again, but there was something behind it this time, something she hadn't let him see before, something fragile and real. "I haven't decided yet," she said. "About the toaster?" "About leaving." "Well, take your time. We've got at least one more ration bar, a half-charged drone, and a spaceship held together by positive thinking. We're not going anywhere fast. And somewhere above them, the stars waited. The launch didn't happen. Not at first, anyway. Ava sat patiently, half buried in her cradle of sand and stone, while Echo paced outside, hands clasped behind her back, eyes lost in some silent equation only she could solve. Leaf watched from atop the terrain crawler, eating a bag of dehydrated noodles that claimed to taste like Grandma's roast galaxy beast. He suspected the manufacturer had never met either a galaxy beast or a grandma. You know, he called out, I hear interstellar silence is actually just the sound of everyone waiting for someone else to make the first move. Echo didn't reply immediately. She stopped pacing, looked up at the twin moons, then said, She's ready. I'm not. That's funny, Leaf said, because I'm pretty sure you were born ready. You know, after being genetically engineered, trained in telepathy, and made the personal enemy of your entire species. Exiled, she corrected. Not quite enemy. More haunting reminder of uncomfortable truths. He slid off the crawler and walked toward her, dust swirling around his boots. So what are you waiting for? I don't know if I'll find anything out there, or if I'll even be allowed to. What if they erase me again? What if I find nothing but ruins? Well, if you do, at least you'll have a cool spaceship and a dramatic backstory. She smiled faintly. You make it sound simple. It's not, but neither is staying here. And besides, Gerald's been trying to install himself as Ava's pilot AI for the last hour. You might want to hurry before he becomes sentient. From somewhere inside Ava's hull, a faint beep was followed by an automated message. Personality core insertion failed. Try again, toaster. Echo turned to Leaf. Come with me. He blinked. Wait, seriously? We could go together, you and me. The stars, the questions, the vending machines of forgotten empires. He hesitated, then rubbed the back of his neck. Tempting, but the 9% is finally running again, and someone has to stay behind in case a new queen of space ever needs a mildly charming mechanic. Her smile faltered. I'm saying no, he said softly, because if I went with you now, it would be about escape. But you're not running anymore, Echo. You're flying towards something. Me? I've got a ship, a very confused drone, and a planet full of rocks that occasionally insult me. She stepped forward, close enough that the silence wrapped around them like the hush before warp jump. You changed something in me, Leaf. Yeah, I tend to do that. Usually it involves bad decisions and half-eaten sandwiches. I mean it. I know. I do too. They stood like that for a moment longer, neither reaching out, neither pulling away. Then she touched his cheek with 2 fingers and whispered, Beautiful boy. He blinked rapidly. You're never going to let me live that down, are you? Not if I survive you. With that, she turned and walked toward the ship. Ava opened for her with a soft hiss, a threshold welcoming the lost and daring. She entered without looking back. The ship thrummed awake, lights rippling across its skin like breath. The engines ignited, casting long shadows across the cracked terrain. Leaf stood beside Gerald as the ship lifted. You recording this? He asked. Gerald beeped. Good. One day when I'm old and pretending I was once attractive, I'll need proof of this. The ship rose higher, hovered, then, without sound, vanished in a blur of motion and light. Ava was gone. He stood there a long time after that. 3 weeks passed. He made upgrades to the 9%, taught Gerald how to play poker, badly, and got chased by a sandworm that mistook his toolkit for a mate. Echo sent transmissions, encrypted memories, fragments of ruins she uncovered, brief jokes about bureaucratic black holes and alien coffee that tasted like existential dread. Then one morning, a shadow fell across the ship. It wasn't Ava. It was a diplomatic vessel of Elharian design, sleek, obsidian-hulled, with banners of silver energy trailing behind it. It landed with ceremonious grace, and 2 figures emerged. The first was tall, regal, adorned in robes that shimmered with layered data ribbons. The second was Echo. Leaf stepped out of the ship, halfway through brushing his teeth. Echo grinned. Surprise! He spat into the dirt. You brought your mom, didn't you? She insisted. The Alharian dignitary approached with the expression of someone who had only recently learned how to fake humility. You are the human. Which one? Leaf asked, wiping toothpaste off his chin. We're like spores. We pop up everywhere. You are the one who encouraged dissonance. Yeah, Leaf said. That's me. Official encourager of complicated feelings. There was a pause, then the dignitary bowed, awkwardly but sincerely. You have our thanks. Echo stepped beside him. They're rethinking the exile protocols. Emotion is no longer classified as a malfunction. Leaf gave a short laugh. What, all because I called someone beautiful girl? Echo looked at him. Yes, exactly because of that. Later, after the diplomats left, Echo and Leif sat on the roof of the 9%, watching the sky as stars blinked into view. You still planning to leave again? He asked. Eventually. He nodded. And if you don't? She leaned against him. Then maybe this is enough. Right now. He thought about everything they'd seen. Ancient machines, forgotten voices, the quiet power of words not meant to change a galaxy, but somehow doing just that. So, what now? Echo smiled. Now we laugh, we live, and maybe, just maybe, we make the universe a little less lonely. Leaf raised his ration bar. To beautiful girls and stubborn ships. Echo raised hers. And to strange boys who don't know what they fixed. They clinked the bars together. The stars didn't answer, but they didn't need to.